She thought you were replaceable. She looked at you and measured you by the standards she learned from people who never understood loyalty, depth, or sacrifice. She thought she could walk away, find another version of you standing on the next corner, someone who would listen the way you did, give the way you did, care the way you did. She believed your kindness was a weakness, that your patience was desperation, that your presence was a gift. And so she tested you. She took more than she gave. She spoke when it suited her and fell silent when it didn't. She believed you would wait forever, anchored there like a lighthouse in her storm. But one day you decided to disappear quietly, without drama, without a grand speech or a door slammed behind you. You simply withdrew that ocean of warmth she took for granted. You reclaimed your time, your mind, your peace. And for the first time, she felt the echo of a hollow room where your laughter used to live. She noticed the silence where your voice used to soften her worst days. She found herself reaching for her phone and stopping mid-text, realizing the comfort of your replies would no longer arrive. That's when it hits her. Some people can't be replaced. Some hearts can't be mimicked. Some souls, once they retreat, leave a vacancy so deep that no distraction can fill it. You see, people often confuse constant love with endless availability. They misunderstand compassion as weakness. They underestimate the quiet power of someone who knows when enough is enough. When you disappear, you don't just remove your body, you remove the security of knowing that someone cares unconditionally. That absence is louder than any argument you could ever make. In your disappearance, you teach her the lesson she couldn't learn while you stayed. Respect is not demanded by force, but by distance. Value is not proven by begging to stay, but by having the courage to leave when your presence is no longer cherished. Now she sits in the empty space where your light once reached her shadows. She realizes too late that not everyone who loves you deeply is willing to be taken for granted endlessly. So let this remind you, your worth is not defined by those who fail to see it. It is defined by the strength it takes to walk away when staying becomes self-betrayal. You are not here to be anyone's convenient comfort. You are here to stand so firmly in your own value that your absence becomes the loudest thing they've ever heard. And when they feel that silence, when they finally understand, you'll already be too far ahead, building a life where you are never again mistaken for someone who can be replaced. People have this dangerous habit of assuming that someone good-hearted and patient will stay forever. They see your kindness, your willingness to understand, your habit of forgiving things that would drive someone else away, and they misread it. They think your compassion means you don't have a limit. They think your patience is proof that you need them more than they need you. So they test you. They push your boundaries just to see if they bend or break. They cross lines that should never be crossed. And when you let it slide once or twice, they assume you'll let it slide forever. You see, when someone sees you as replaceable, it doesn't always mean they're cruel or heartless. Sometimes they're just blind. They're blind to the quiet sacrifices you make daily. They overlook the way you stay up when they can't sleep, the way you listen when they're falling apart, the way you calm storms in their mind that they don't even notice you're calming. It's easy to underestimate a steady presence. It's easy to think that someone who forgives you, someone who gives you second chances, will always be there with another. They forget that patience is a choice. That kindness is a decision made again and again in moments when frustration or anger would be easier. They forget that every time you overlook the hurtful word, the broken promise, the silent treatment, you're choosing peace over pride. But choice is a fragile thing. It can be taken back the moment it's no longer deserved. And the sad truth is, the more consistent your love is, the less visible it becomes. People start to see it as background noise. They think, well, they're here today, they'll be here tomorrow too. They believe loyalty means you're trapped, that your care has shackled you in place. They don't see the quiet truth that the same heart willing to forgive is also capable of closing its doors forever. That the same patience that allows you to stay longer than you should can also power your final goodbye. You become ordinary to them, familiar, predictable. They assume they can test your limits without consequence. They think you'll keep absorbing the disrespect, the neglect, the cold silences, because that's what you've done before. So they keep pushing. They keep seeing how far they can go before you break. What they don't realize is that you're not breaking, you're building the strength to then. And when you do, when you finally decide that enough is enough, they're left confused. They can't understand how someone so patient, so giving, so loyal could just disappear. They look around for you in the places you used to be. They send a message and stare at the phone, waiting for the reply you once sent in seconds. They hear their own thoughts echo back, because your comforting words are no longer there to quiet the noise. They think back to the nights you stayed awake with them, the mornings you showed up even when they didn't ask, the fights you forgave before the apologies were spoken. Suddenly they realize that the person they thought was replaceable is the one person they can't find again. They learn that what they took for weakness was actually unmatched strength. The strength to care deeply in a world that constantly tells you not to, the strength to forgive when you're hurting, the strength to stand by someone who doesn't always stand by you. And that same strength is what lets you walk away when the time comes to protect your heart. Your absence becomes the lesson they needed, a lesson they didn't believe in when you were right there, loving them through their worst days. They finally understand that a steady, patient love isn't something you stumble across every day. It's not something you can summon from someone new just because you're lonely tonight. It's rare, it's precious, it's built slowly through trust and respect. And once the respect is gone, the love can't breathe anymore. They thought you'd wait forever, they thought you'd forgive forever, but you didn't, because you know now that patience doesn't mean staying where you're unappreciated. Loyalty doesn't mean betraying yourself to keep someone else comfortable. Kindness doesn't mean letting your spirit be drained by someone who only takes. And love, real love, the kind you carry, is far too valuable to waste on someone who only realizes its worth when it's gone. So let them sit in that silence. Let them feel the emptiness you left behind. Because the truth is, they didn't lose someone who needed them. They lost someone they needed. Someone who showed them a depth of care they may never feel again. You didn't lose them. They lost you. And that's a lesson they'll carry long after you've built a life that never again confuses patience with permission to be taken for granted. When you finally decide to leave, you don't throw plates against the wall or shout at the top of your lungs. You don't draft long paragraphs demanding to be understood. You don't stand there pleading for them to see your worth one last time. You simply gather what's left of your peace, and you take it with you. No announcements, no last dramatic scene, just silence, the kind that says everything words never could. The quiet exit is something they never expect. They imagine if you ever left, you'd do it the way they see in movies. Tears streaming down your face, a door slammed so loud the neighbors wake up. They think they'll get one last chance to pull you back in, to say something sweet and temporary that convinces you to stay just a little longer. They think they'll have the power to fix it with promises they never plan to keep. But when you vanish without giving them that moment, it shakes, it breaks a pattern they relied on, you see. For a long time they trained themselves to believe your love was unconditional in the worst way. They convinced themselves that no matter what they did, how cold they were, how many times they pulled away, you'd still be there tomorrow, waiting with the same open arms. So they took more than they gave. They leaned on you when it suited them, and disappeared when it did. They treated your loyalty like it was cheap, and you let them until you didn't. That's the power of the quiet exit. It doesn't give them the satisfaction of a fight they can twist in their favor. It doesn't give them a scene they can retell to their friends about how dramatic you were. It gives them nothing but space. Space to sit alone with the truth they ignored for so long. They're forced to replay every moment they took you for granted, every time they shrugged off your feelings, every chance they had to choose you but chose themselves instead. When you leave quietly, you reclaim something they thought they owned, your energy. All the late nights listening to problems they never bothered to solve, all the effort you poured into softening their worst days, all the excuses you made for their half-love. It comes back to you. They can't argue with your silence. They can't negotiate with it. They can't bend it in their favor. It just hangs in the air, undeniable and heavy. They might reach out, of course. They'll send messages, half-formed apologies, wrapped in memory. They'll remind you of inside jokes, of the moments they think tie you to them. They'll test the waters to see if the same old lines still work. But you won't answer, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You'll read those words and realize they cost you too much peace to read twice. You'll remember how many nights you waited for those words when they mattered, and how empty it felt when they never came. The quiet exit teaches them something loud, that real love is not loud begging and constant chasing. It's steady presence and silent sacrifice. It's showing up day after day, even when it's inconvenient. It's forgiving mistakes that hurt to forgive. When that's gone, it's gone for good, and no frantic message or midnight call can rebuild what they themselves tore down. They'll tell themselves stories to make sense of it. They'll say you changed overnight. They'll say you're heartless for cutting them off. They'll tell anyone who listens that you ghosted them for no reason, but deep down, late at night when the silence is the loudest thing in the room, they'll know better. They'll remember the times you stayed when you shouldn't have. They'll remember the way you looked at them when they lied, and you loved them anyway. They'll remember the loyalty they mistook for weakness, and that memory will sit in their chest, a reminder that some people disappear not because they don't care, but because they finally do. In disappearing, you protect something precious, your dignity. You prove that real strength is not found in loud words or dramatic exits, but in the quiet certainty that your heart deserves better than half love and empty promises. You become a ghost not because you want revenge, but because you finally want peace. And maybe someday they'll see someone else standing where you once stood, someone who listens a little less deeply, forgives a little less easily, loves a little more cautious. And maybe in that moment, they'll realize it wasn't just anyone filling that space, it was you with all your depth, your patience, your loyalty, and they'll feel the weight of your silence all over again. Let them feel it. Let the quiet speak for you now, because sometimes the loudest thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. Some people move through life, convinced that everyone is just a placeholder until the next distraction arrives. They think if they lose one person, they'll simply find another to step in and play the same role, speak the same words, offer the same comfort. They tell themselves that if you ever left, it wouldn't matter. Someone else would come along to fill that space, to listen to their stories, to patch up the cracks they don't want to fix on their own. They fool themselves into thinking that hearts like yours are common, that souls like yours are waiting in every room they walk into. But when you disappear, when you truly remove yourself from their orbit, they run face first into the truth they spent so long denying. Not everyone is replaceable. You were not just another pair of ears for their complaints. You were not just a warm body to fill an empty bed. You were not just a soft shoulder for tears that fell too easily when guilt hit them at midnight. You were someone who actually stayed when things got uncomfortable, who dug deeper when everyone else would have turned away. You asked the questions they didn't want to answer. You offered forgiveness when they didn't deserve it. You believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. They won't admit it right away. Pride has a funny way of disguising regret. At first, they'll pretend they're fine. They'll try to replace you quickly, because that's what they've always done. They'll laugh a little louder in crowded rooms, post photos that look like happiness, but feel like static. They'll find someone new, who talks about shallow things, and doesn't ask them to grow. For a while it might even work. It'll look like they've moved on. But late at night, when the party ends, when the phone goes dark and the room goes quiet, that's when it hits them what they have now is not what they lost. They'll reach for the phone to send you a message, and stop halfway through. They'll remember how easily they used to take you for granted, your instant replies, your soft good nights, the way you'd listen to a rant that made no sense just because they needed to vent. They'll remember the warmth that never asked for anything in return. And that's when they'll realize that not everyone has that to give, because you didn't just fill a role. You brought parts of yourself into their life that can't be mimicked by anyone else. Your kindness, your patience, your way of loving without needing constant praise for it. These things don't grow on every street corner. They can date 10 more people. They can share a bed, a dinner, a laugh, but they won't find someone who sees them the way you do. They won't find someone who remembers the small details, the invisible battles, the dreams they never spoke aloud but somehow you knew anyway. That's what they don't see when they have you. They don't see that loyalty like yours comes at a cost. It comes from someone who fights for connection when walking away would be easier. They don't see that your care is built slowly, brick by brick, moment by moment, trust earned and nurtured. So when you go, you don't just take your presence, you take a foundation they didn't know they were standing on until it's gone. They feel the emptiness in the small things, in the way nobody notices their bad mood, in the way nobody checks if they made it home safe, in the way the world feels a little colder without your warmth to soften it. They'll tell themselves stories to quiet that ache. They'll say you were too much, too intense, too emotional. They'll try to convince themselves they're better off without you. But every time they stand in a room full of people and still feel alone, every time they reach out for comfort and find only silence, they'll understand. They'll see that what they lost wasn't just a person to pass time with. It was a sanctuary. It was the rare feeling of being seen without needing to perform, of being loved without having to hide parts of themselves. And you can't replace that with another name in your phone. You can't fake that with someone who doesn't carry the same heart you did. That's why your absence stings. It lingers longer than they expect because deep down they know they gave away something precious for nothing.
They know they gambled loyalty for convenience. They realize too late that you were never just an option. They were lucky to be chosen by you at all. And while they sit with that, trying to fill the space you left behind with noise and distractions, you stand taller for it. You learn that your depth is your gift, not your burden. And next time you'll guard it more wisely. Let them feel what it means to lose something they thought could never be lost. Let them learn, in the hollow places your absence leaves behind, that not every good thing can be replaced. Some hearts don't come twice. People rarely understand the true value of something that's always within arm's reach. It's human nature in a way. We assume the sun will rise tomorrow, that the seasons will change, that the person who has always picked up the phone when we call at midnight will always pick up again. We become so used to someone's presence that we forget what life would feel like without it. And then when that person pulls back, when their warmth turns into distance, the lesson begins. Distance has a way of teaching people what respect really means. When you stand too close to someone who takes you for granted, they don't have the perspective to see what you truly bring into their life. They mistake your constant availability for a lack of options. They tell themselves you stay because you have nowhere else to go. They fail to see that every conversation you entertained, every moment you stayed when it was easier to leave, was a choice you made freely, not a favor they were entitled to receive. So when you finally decide to step back, it's not about punishing them. It's about reminding them without shouting, without pleading, that your presence is earned through respect. Suddenly they're confronted by the echo of your absence. They notice the silence, where your laughter used to soften the sharp edges of their day. They feel the cold, where your understanding once warmed their mistakes. Distance strips away the illusion that someone like you can be replaced with the snap of their fingers. It makes them sit with themselves in a way they avoided when you were there to distract them from their own emptiness. When you are too close for too long, people see you as an extension of themselves. They forget you have your own needs, your own limits. They assume your boundaries can be pushed again and again because you allowed it before. But when you create distance, real distance, not a petty threat, not a silent treatment meant to manipulate, but a genuine retreat to protect your peace, something shifts. They're forced to look at the space you once filled and ask themselves why you're no longer there. They're forced to confront the truth that they never respected what you gave because they thought it would never end. You see, distance does what words often fail to do. You could explain 1,000 times how you feel overlooked, how you feel unappreciated. You could pour out your heart in long messages, in late-night arguments, in exhausted explanations, but when someone refuses to listen, your words become noise. It's only when you remove your energy completely that your silence turns into a mirror. Suddenly they see themselves, not through your forgiving eyes but through the void you leave behind. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're cold now, distant now. They'll ask why you can't be the person you used to be, but they don't understand that your distance isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's you reclaiming your value. It's you refusing to spend another ounce of your kindness where it's treated like a given instead of a gift. Respect cannot be begged for. It cannot be demanded through ultimatums or tears. True respect is earned by showing people that your presence has conditions: honesty, effort, mutual care. And when those conditions aren't met, you don't scream for better treatment. You step away. You show them with your absence what your words never could. You will never be somewhere you are not valued. This distance, though it might feel cold at first, is not punishment for them, it's protection for you. It's the boundary that keeps your spirit safe from being drained. It's the space that gives you room to heal from the small betrayals that piled up when you stayed too close for too long. And maybe, just maybe, it gives them the chance to learn, because sometimes people can't see your worth until they're forced to live without it. Sometimes people need to feel the consequences of their carelessness before they understand what they lost. And if they never learn, that's not your burden anymore. Distance protects you from the cycle of giving more than you. It reminds you that your heart, your time, your energy are not owed to anyone who won't hold them with care. And in that space you create, you grow stronger. You remember who you are without them. And you see, often for the first time in a long time, how much more you deserve than crumbs handed out by someone who only realizes your worth when you're gone. Let the distance speak for you. Let it build the respect your words couldn't demand. And if they finally understand, if they don't, you're already too far ahead to look back. It's easy to lose yourself when you love deep. You start to think that loyalty means staying no matter how you're treated. That real love is proven by your ability to tolerate disappointment, to excuse broken promises, to swallow words that burn at the back of your throat. You convince yourself that patience is a virtue, that understanding is noble, that that compromise is the price you pay to keep someone by your side. So you bend, you forgive the thoughtless words, the silences that cut deeper than any fight ever could. You brush aside your own needs, because you tell yourself theirs matter more, and little by little you become smaller to keep the connection alive. You don't even notice it happening at first. It's subtle. You stop mentioning things that bother you because you don't want to start another argument. You convince yourself you're overreacting when they ignore your feelings. You laugh off the way they pull you close when it suits them and push you away when they're bored. You tell yourself this is just how love works, that no relationship is perfect, that one day they'll see what they have. But every time you silence your own voice to keep them comfortable, you teach yourself the wrong lesson, that your needs are negotiable, that your boundaries are suggestions, that your heart can be sacrificed for the sake of holding on to someone who doesn't know how to hold you back. And the cruel truth is, they see this, maybe not consciously, but somewhere deep down they know you'll stay, they know you'll forgive, they know they can disappear for days, and come back with half an apology, and you'll open the door again. They lean on your soft, they rely on your fear of losing them, and each time you accept less than you deserve, you show them you're willing to betray yourself just to keep them around. But there comes a moment when the weight of this betrayal starts to choke you, a moment when you look in the mirror and see someone you barely recognize, someone exhausted, someone empty, someone who gives so much yet feels so unseen, and in that moment you realize that love, if it costs your self-respect, isn't really love at all. You understand that loyalty means nothing if it only flows in one direction, that patience is beautiful only when it's met with effort, that compassion should never demand that you abandon yourself to prove your worth to someone who can't see. So you make the hardest choice you've ever made. You choose yourself. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you stop loving them overnight. The truth is, part of you will always care. You'll still replay the good memories, still wonder if maybe they'll change, still feel that ache in your chest when you hear their name in a song, but you'll know deep down that going back would mean losing yourself all over again. So you stay away, not because you hate them but because you finally refuse to hate yourself in the process of loving them. You stop betraying your own heart to soothe theirs. You stop apologizing for asking for the bare minimum. You stop shrinking to fit the version of you they prefer, small, quiet, easy to handle. You learn to sit with the loneliness that comes after you walk away, because you know it's a loneliness you can heal from. It's not the same as the loneliness you felt while lying next to someone who made you feel invisible, and slowly that empty space you once filled with excuses and second chances starts to grow into something else. It becomes freedom, it becomes clarity, it becomes the promise that the next time you love you'll do it without betraying yourself. You'll know your needs are valid, your boundaries are sacred, your heart is not a bargaining chip for someone else's comfort. One day they might come back, maybe they'll tell you they finally see what they lost, maybe they'll promise change, maybe they'll stand at your door with the same old lines and the same tired excuses, hoping the old version of you is still there, waiting to open up and pour yourself out like water for someone dying of thirst. But that version of you doesn't live here anymore. Now you love yourself enough to stand firm when the past tries to pull you back in. You know that some goodbyes aren't about hate, they're about survival. You know that choosing yourself is the greatest act of love you'll ever offer the world, because it means you'll never again confuse your worth with someone else's inability to see it. So you stand alone for a while, you heal, and you promise yourself that next time love will never ask you to abandon the very person you worked so hard to find. You. Silence is a strange teacher. It creeps in slowly at first, like a shadow slipping under the door when the lights go out. At first they don't notice it. Your absence feels like a trick, a passing phase. They tell themselves you're just upset that you'll come back like you always did. They think your quiet is a pause, not an end. But as the days stretch on and your voice does not return to fill the spaces they took for granted, the silence begins to speak in ways your words never could. There's something about the quiet that exposes the truth. When you were there, they drowned your disappointment in noise, arguments, distractions, temporary promises to change. They tossed out empty apologies just to hush you long enough to keep you from leaving. They depended on the idea that you would always break first, that you'd choose connection over your own peace, that you'd rather suffer in the noise than stand alone in the silence. But now there is no noise, there is only the echo of what they've lost. They feel it late at night when they reach for their phone and remember there's no message waiting for them this time. They feel it when something good happens and they instinctively think to share it with you, only to remember they pushed away the one person who would have celebrated with genuine joy. They feel it when they face one of those quiet storms that used to send them running to your arms for comfort, only to find there's no soft landing left for them. Your silence becomes a mirror. It forces them to see what they would not see when you were standing right in front of them, speaking the truth they refused to hear. It shows them that your forgiveness was never weakness. It was strength. It shows them that your patience was never desperation. It was a gift they squandered. It shows them that love, real love, does not beg to stay where it is neglected. At first, they'll try to fill the void. They'll run to new distractions, new people, anything that keeps them from sitting in the quiet you left behind. They'll laugh louder in places that don't feel like home. They'll post pictures that scream "I'm fine" into the void, hoping someone, maybe even you, will believe it. But the silence is patient. It waits behind every forced smile, every shallow conversation, every half-hearted attempt to replace what cannot be replaced. It waits until the party ends, and they're alone with their thoughts, replaying memories that taste sweeter now that they know they can't have them back. Silence has a way of asking the questions they never let themselves ask when you were near. Why did you stay so long? Why did you finally? Was it really that bad? Was I really that blind? And in those questions the lessons take root. They see all the chances they wasted. They remember the softness in your voice when you forgave them for the same mistakes over and over. They feel the weight of every unreturned kindness, every broken promise they brushed off with casual excuses. This is how silence works. It doesn't punish.